I welcome everyone to this evening's uh, talk. My name is Christine Farr, and I am the owner of Farr and Nair LLC. We are a notary signing agent company, and we're based in Charlotte, North Carolina. The purpose of this talk is to provide valid information for those of you who are in North Carolina as notary publics and are dealing with the current transition for remote electronic notarization. This evening, we're going to talk as though we're dealing with traditional notarization and those notaries who have successfully completed the exams at the community colleges and are looking for a way, just valid information to help guide them through the process of practically starting up their business and transitioning to a point where they're ready to be compliant and earn money in the business, but doing it in such a way that they have, as we would say, cover their butts and are positioned to succeed. So I just want to quickly highlight that a lot of the material that's here has been repurposed. It's been repurposed because I only want to take a short 30 minutes of your time. And so I've compacted and over the course of the week, presented it in bite-sized pieces so that it would invite your presence here to learn a little bit more and go into it more deeply. And I will add little insights, personal experience, and hopefully have others join in and give weigh in on their own experience and give insights as to what they've encountered, as practicing notaries, or just answer any questions that you may have coming straight out of an exam. By the way, congratulations if you have successfully passed the exam, and thank you again for being here. So this was what was posted on Monday, and I just want to go into it a little bit deeper. As you see, these are basically the steps that you would follow, the checklist and the steps that you would follow. So you would have to go through the application submission, and you would ensure that the notarized application is submitted to the North Carolina Secretary of State within the time frame that is typically 3 months after you've completed your course at the community college or wherever you've completed the course, because they do offer them online now. Some of the instructors do offer them online. So after that, you will need to go into the Register of Deeds and receive an oath, take your oath. You need to present you're going to be presented with a letter. You're going to receive a letter from the Secretary of State, and that should typically come to you by email. And it has a 45-day deadline for you to take the oath. So you need to be watching your time and making sure that you're paying attention to the deadline. The other part of it has to do with the items that you need to take with you when you're attending the Secretary of State's office. You're going to need your driver's license or a valid ID and the notification letter that you received, as well as the fee, and that's typically around $10. After that, you're going to get your commission certificate. and you need to understand that you don't have the authority to use it prior to the oath being administered. You cannot utilize your commission until you have had the oath administered at the Register of Deeds. These are some of the tools, as you see pictured here. We have the a couple of tools that we highlighted. So you want to make sure that you are, you know, equipping yourself with these essential tools. The first one, of course, is going to be your seal. And then you want to make sure that you have a compliant workspace. That means you're going to need a printer, a journal, and a ID reference guide. Additionally, as we transition to the remote electronic notarization process, you will also need to consider the cost involved in accessing the provider, the approved provider fee, platform fee. And depending on what your niche is or what you are desirous of doing, you would need to, of course, get some training. If you've never worked, for example, in the mortgage field, it's a nuanced industry, so it would make sense that you get the training that is necessary to become a loan signing agent. Similarly, if you have never done apostille, for example, or estate planning, you would need to at least become familiar with what are some of the nuanced information that's required there. In regards to your seal, you need to pay attention to some of the details so that when you receive it, you know that it is compliant. It needs to have the word Notary Public and the county that you're commissioned and North Carolina or NC. And as we're transitioning, as you know, there are electronic notarization. So if you're going to get an e-seal, the similar principle apply, but it would say electronic notary and North Carolina as well as the county. And for the notary seal, it does often have the expiration date indicated on there, which is very helpful when you're working with traditional pen and paper. In the past, I have had mine without the date, but I'm sure that there's some new guidance with that. So you want to pay attention by ensuring that you get one of the new manuals to look at the specifics if you can have one without the date. What I have done in the past is to maintain an embosser because sometimes it is helpful to have that. So I've kept my embosser, and the embosser typically comes without the date, and so it will follow you throughout the course of your being a notary versus the stamp. You do get that almost every 5 years. You get a new one because the expiration date changes. So the dimensions of the stamp or seal is important. They have a circular or a rectangular one. And also make sure that your seal is it is legible. I've ordered a self-inking stamp, and it has worked quite well since I've ordered it. Some of the providers for these items, they actually really go into detailed thought about, the fact that you're a mobile notary and having to deal with multiple items at the same time. So the self-inking one is the one that I recommend because it is self-contained, and you don't have to have a separate ink, like a ink pad to apply the ink when you need to make your impression on a paper, for example. Now, regarding the journal, I would recommend that you get a very high quality journal. While North Carolina law does not mandate it that you have a journal, you need to ensure that you have kept adequate record just in case, for example, there is a need to, if you're brought to court for any reason, you have adequate record of the transaction with notes and what happened. And this is important because as we transition to the electronic notarization, these are some of the benefits that it is being provided, and it's imperative that you pay attention to your note-taking as a traditional notary so that you have some kind of evidence of what transpired, and it becomes a source of defensibility, so to speak. So you need to structure your entries for accuracy and completeness. So that takes us to a very important consideration when it comes to like just setting up your workspace and you knowing what to purchase, what the cost of the items are. Here is something that I posted that I believe is very useful as a new notary. You have I've separated it here in 3 sections. You have the compliance and the fundamental, technology and connectivity, and then the support items. Overall, your average cost is going to be about $1,850. And let's break that down a little bit. So it should cost you about $90, I think, to get commission. You're going to pay $10. I needed to break this down a little bit more, but you have $10 for the oath, and then there is an additional cost for the course that you've taken. So that's what I'm thinking of when I put that figure there. So the cost of the course plus the actual and this may not be 100% accurate, but it's an estimate. So it's a cost of the course that you're going to take at CPCC. I'm not sure if it has increased or not. This is worth investigating a little bit more. The cost of the course plus the fee that you pay at the Register of Deeds, and I think for the certificate as well. So that's kind of what that was about. Then there's the seal and the embosser. Some people get both of them. On average, that's around $52. With the notary journal, they range from anywhere to $15 to $25. And the errors and omission, you're going to need those for if something happened, if you make an error in your notarization, it's a protection, it's an insurance to protect you. So that range from anywhere from $60 to $120. Mine, the one that I've I normally order from the NNA, and they're more affordable one, but I seem to have consistently chosen the NNA simply because that's what I've always done. And they are a little bit more pricier. It's about $150, I believe, with them. Moving right along, we may want to set up a website. So that's depending on who you use, that's going to run you somewhere from $50 to $150. Sometimes the hardest thing is doing it all by yourself, and that's the lesson that I am learning. It is best to get a professional because it does take the edge off. But there's several factors that you want to, personally take ownership of in terms of like its security, making sure that you have, uh, enough malware coverage, cybersecurity, those sort of things for your website. That's important. Sometimes just starting out and then gradually working and making sure that you safeguard yourself, depending on the type of business that you're intending to provide. So, for example, if your main niche is loan signing, that it becomes necessary to ensure that you safeguard your website. The NNA training, that's the fee that's there. It shows you that it's anywhere from $99 to $199. With this, what I would say, I tend to ensure that I get my background check with them. I ensure that I get my it is the signing agent signing agent listing. So those are some of the two things. There's also the membership, and that may be a little bit pricier, but what I tend to think is that the training, the annual training, and then the certification, the signing agent is some of the basic one if you're just starting out. As you grow your business, then you can, of course, embrace more of the options that they offer, but they've been around for a long time. And so I think that is a good thing to have. There's also other, how do you say, memberships that offer like, I think it's the American Association of Notaries. That's another option. There are several other options to investigate, but I personally have always used the NNA simply because of the field that I was in, and I felt that the information that they provided was very complete, and they tend to stay ahead of the curve in terms of compliance, and they provide a wealth of information on their website. I've always been able to call them and ask questions and get the answers readily. The other thing, we're going to just slip right over to where we talk about the technology here. You want to have a printer that the printers can run on average 250. I believe that I think you want to consider several different brands. They say Brother is one of the most cost-effective one. So you have Brother, you have HP, you have Epson, you have Lexmark. You have so many different options, but you want to research that and ensure that you have something that's going to give you a bang for your buck in terms of the cost per page and the cost of the toner, because one of the drawbacks is I wouldn't recommend Canon simply because I purchased it thinking that I was going to get some leverage out of it, and it is not one of the brands that is good in terms of ink. So ink usage. So I wouldn't recommend that brand, but I would recommend just doing your research and ensuring that you're fully equipped before making like fully informed before you make a purchase. The other item has to do with the solution provider fee. That's more towards when you become an electronic notary. So those are not yet out, but that's another consideration you're going to want to put in your budget as you plan to launch out, whether it's doing the in-person electronic notarization, IPEN, or the REN, remote electronic notarization. On average, I'm being told that that's about $20 per month. Then there is the ID reference guide. This is important because obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, it helps you to identify the different kinds of identification that are acceptable form, because this covers an important part of what we do in the United States. We have a law called the U.S. Patriot Act, and being able to identify what's a valid form of ID becomes essential, and this is going to be a very useful tool to have in some of the tricky situations that you may find yourself when presented with IDs that you don't know. And I say this because we are becoming more of a global society, and so you will have foreign nationals coming inside the state, and being able to identify those identification too becomes essential because they are allowed. The other thing that you want to consider is, of course, you will need a phone and an iPad. If you don't have one already, you're going to need one. And the cost is there. That's a consideration you need to think about. The iPad becomes essential as we transition to the IPEN, which is the in-person electronic notarization, because it's good to have that so that you can easily give that to the customer and have them sign. Here is some other things too. Well, let me just finish this part with the technology piece. You have the mobile gadget. So if, for example, you want to be fully functional and on the go, it may make sense to get some, have a printer in your car and have things that, paper, things that are readily accessible so that you can use them on the go rather than having to go back and forth from home, because you are not permitted to have others print your document for you. It would make sense that you have a way to safely print it while you're on the go. If you are one of those who, like to be fully booked and have 10, 20, exaggerating, but have a lot of closings in a single day, this becomes a vital tool to have. In the past, it was where you would have the title company and banks, or the third parties calling you, and they would give you adequate time to plan. But with the expansive changes that we're going through, not only in North Carolina, but across the United States. A lot of people are buying property and or refinancing or making modification, or they are selling their cars, or they are, whatever it is. I'm just saying it makes sense. It does make sense to have that for yourself so that you can be able to meet the demand should a call come into you, or you want to be able to fix an error. If you're at a signing, you can readily accommodate that or print something for somebody, depending on how you've structured your business. Finally, with the technology piece, you're gonna need some professional supply, a bag, some these are some the acknowledgement forms, and then the pen and encrypted UBS. You want to make sure that it's encrypted, because we're gonna get into that a few slides down. But overall, on this slide here, we have the complete realistic average cost, which is a little bit much, but it's a very realistic amount to prepare to spend. Okay, so this is a little bit repetitive, but as again, it goes into a little bit more detail about, like what it is that you need to have in your tool set. And the phone, you want to make sure it is a business only phone, like it's a dedicated to your business alone, and it has you have a signature set up so that if with what's happening in terms of texting, and we're dealing with different generations, and just being able to navigate between generations and texting, and just having a very professional presence. You want to make sure that this is a separate and dedicated number. Also, your greeting needs to be the professional greeting. So for Foreign Near LLC, I would ensure that I put my name on my phone. Then the encryption thing, which I mentioned earlier on, there is this thing called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, and it involves the important part, whatever field you're in, it is something that you need to pay attention to. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more. So in the next slide, just give me one moment as I talk quickly about the blank certificates. We looked at some of the tools under the mobile notary kit earlier on, and the blank certificates. So you need that in case you never know when it comes in, and just so you don't have to be typing out the wording, or if one is required. These are available for download at the Secretary of State website. And just a quick note, you need to be mindful that if you ever do handle a loan package and you see just a single blank acknowledgement or certificate form there, and it's not attached or fixed to a document, you must not just simply sign it. It is a common mistake, and you should avoid just randomly signing a blank certificate. It needs to have an association to a specific document. So no loose leaf certificate. You should not sign a loose leaf certificate and leave it as that. It needs to relate to a specific document. So what does compliance mean? And this is what the next slide will go a little bit more in depth about, at least on one point. But in terms of your work, you need to identify what is it that I'm doing, whether it is, again, loan signing, DMV, whatever it may be. You know, there's so much different niches out there, apostille. You need to work backwards, and then you can understand how the compliance apply to you. And especially as we transition to the remote electronic notarization, this is where we're going to run into some serious requirements. So whenever you're setting up your systems, you're going to be mindful of the importance of compliance. So let's move on to the next item. And this is the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act. It shows you here on the left-hand side that it is a federal law and it's designed to safeguard consumer data. And it applies to not only financial institution, it applies across the board. There are some different kinds of data. And as you look to the right of this slide, you see that there's the General Data Protection Regulation, there's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, the HIPAA Act, there's the Payment Card and Industry Data Security Standard Act, there's the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, and then there's the California Consumer Privacy Act. So all of these are part of what we do. And it doesn't matter what data you're handling, we're required to be mindful that we're handling people's personal, non-public information. All right, so here is where some valid information as a new notary, and surprisingly, I was not aware of this myself. When I started out, my niche was solely loan signing. So it was only recently that I understood that there are so many opportunities for all of us. So I often thought that my niche chose me. So, you know, this is why I call it choose or be chosen. So, what is your natural preference? Are you interested in real estate? Are you in the healthcare field? Do you want to do general notary work? You know, is it that you are better at handling quick transactions like the title, the vehicle title documents? You know, whatever it is that brought you into the notary field, this is where you try to take ownership of where your strengths are and focus on that. So, of course, of late, I think since the pandemic, there's been a lot of noise out there, and they've been treating the service that the notary does as a gig. It's not a gig, right? That's something that's a misconception in my mind. The notary public is a public servant, and you shouldn't treat it as a gig. One of the additional niches that I didn't mention in the list is like there's visa and passport and travel documents. Those are some of the other additional niches that are out there, and that's that's not the only one. There's many, many more. This is just me trying to present some ideas. So, you need to consider what it is that you want to do and follow through on that. So many title companies, this is in this time, there's a lot of title companies that are out there. You can find them online. And sometimes you just have to realize that they're not going to readily just take any and anybody. They're looking for experience. And I'm speaking about title companies simply because that's what I've always done. They're looking for people with experience, and so they're vetting everyone and looking what it is that you actually already know. So it may be somewhat of a difficulty to get in the field, but there are also third-party signing companies who are looking for notaries, and they will take you on, and so oftentimes there's training provided, and you follow their way of doing things, and you create a good relationship with them, and then you can branch out from there. So it's often like, we say you crawl before you walk. So sometimes it's just a matter of building that trust with the signing companies, and then you can transition to title companies. It is not a 100%. I'm not saying that this is always the case. It just depends on which title company that you're working with. Because I remember when I got my first loan package to sign, it was a learning curve for me, and I was very happy that someone had given me the opportunity to learn the business. And this was before I ended up at the bank. So here is something else that you want to consider. Here in North Carolina, the fees are set in terms of your general notary work. The fee is $10 for acknowledgement, oath, jurat, and affirmation, and as well as verification and proofs. For the electronic notarization, the IPEN, the in-person electronic notarization, that's $15, and then the remote electronic notarization is $25. The fees here, you see that I am correcting myself, so forgive me that I didn't compute it accurately, but the course is about 90 to 135, so I just make that correction here. The application fee is $50, and then the manual is $35, and then the register of deed is $10. So this is the accurate information here. You're typically gonna come be confronted with those costs for your exams, as you already probably know. And then important thing to note is the travel fee. We are now permitted to charge for travel, which is actual miles. My last check, I thought it was round trip at one point, but it's actual miles. You may want to double check that as well. When you are going to charge for that, the required documentation is you need to ensure that you're asking for, and this is something that I posted on my website, or on my Facebook. You're going to ask for an identification and ensure that you obtain travel consent prior to leaving for the signing. The person must consent to be charged this fee. So this is the next phase of it. The mindset that you need to adapt is adopt the mindset of establish a real business and getting your name out to the public. And this can be done through social media and marketing yourself by word of mouth, by your people in your network. There's so many different ways. The learning curve about marketing is going to be another thing, because you want to be busy every day. Just my personal experience, I have a list of signing companies, and you can also scour the internet or use AI and different technologies to gather that. As I've stated before, signing companies are vetting, so they're looking for people with experience, and sometimes that's a barrier, but it's not something that you can't overcome. You just need to have a proper strategy of how to navigate that. And remember, just to start somewhere, apply. If you begin small and maybe just start doing your own thing, the general notary work, making people know that you're available to help them, then you can obviously show proof and trust that you are a dependable, reliable notary, and ultimately you will be able to magnetize the right client base, whatever referrals you're looking for, because there's a process, and we're going to go over that another time. I'd suggest also networking events and be very selective when you do those. It just so that you can figure out what's happening in the market, and just be intentional about which events you're attending, because not all event is worth it, but you certainly can strategically choose the ones that you believe you would get best traction from. Of course, partner with real estate agents. Of course, you're going to keep trying to get the title companies, get on the title companies and connect with attorneys, or join Facebook groups on various various other platform. So you want to take your time. This is what I'd say, because a lot of the noise that's out there, they're saying, okay, it's quick business and so on, but build a business that is steady and show up regularly, do your work diligently, and eventually the business will build itself based on what you have put forward. As you see on this slide here, these are some consideration you need to have. The pricing policies, you need to make sure you're building with what we call the 4 pillars, right? So you're turning your commission into confidence and your skills into income. So the 4 pillars, you want the pricing, you want to do the service and delivery, you want to make sure that you have a good sense of how to present professionally. You want to be on time. You want to communicate clearly and review the documents. I like to review my documents. If it's a loan package, I feel confident about what I'm going to look at, simply because I've been exposed to it. If it's something that I've never done, I do get a little anxious, but it makes sense to at least have an idea, because there are some things that are jarring and you want to be careful about them as well. Because as a notary, you have the right to say no to a signing or to sign something. Your first duty is to deter fraud. And that should be the overarching principle of anything that you do. You want to make sure that the person is competent, and as well as that they're signing without duress. In terms of client acquisition, one of the things that I've started is to I've recently had my Google business page up, and I started to do some networking in my community. It's been a new exposure for me, but this is something that a new notary needs to be aware of as well, that the technology is available, and if you use it and know how to use it, that it will pay off in the end. Another important consideration is the payment systems. Make sure you're able to accept as many forms of payment as possible. And one of the setback is the fee, the cost that's involved. Remember, you are starting out in a service role, so it doesn't pay a lot of money to begin, but as you develop and you perfect your niche, then you are able to command a higher salary, right? Or not salary, let me rephrase that, a higher fee based on what you have chosen to do. So for example, the fees that we looked at earlier on, those were just for general notary work, but for like loan signing or for apostille, those are things that are not they don't really have like a, a statutory requirement on them, but the banks or the title companies, they have their own set fee that they use. But if you are called, because I know that there are times when you're called by a title company and they just want someone to be available, and they will pay you a good rate. So you have to be ready and know how to price your service. And so I have a separate fee sheet that I maintain for that. And that's something that you want to put together. You want to have a fee sheet that you can draw from and structure what you do around that. As a beginner, one of the things that you want to know is that don't undervalue your service, because I think that's something all of us do. For me, for example, I've struggled with that because, I've always I've always had a difficulty pricing the things high. I think about the person who I'm serving and make these considerations because of my own upbringing and just awareness of the challenges that sometimes money create. But business is business, and it makes sense to sit down and have a serious thought about what you're going to charge and place a value on the work that you do, right? And then the other thing, you don't want to say yes to everything. Not every job is a worthwhile job, because the market is getting saturated, and sometimes people, they don't think about the costs that you have, like some companies, depending on what they're offering, some of them don't think about how it affects you, especially in light of the cost of gas and all of these things. If you're a mobile notary, you want to think about, okay, is this worth my time? Because your time is your money. And you want to be able to say yes to the right opportunity. And make sure you have a system, for payment, at least get a Google Pay or set up a Zelle or something so that if people do not have cash, that they can pay you with a card, and you have a way to set that aside, have a separate account so that at the end of the year you can report, depending on the, the situation for your taxes and so on. You can make sure you report what your taxes. Yes, notaries don't typically get assessed for their taxes, but if you're dealing, it depends on how you structure your business. You still have to report certain things. So make sure you have a system to collect your payment, right? And make sure you're investing in your business. Make sure you are, marketing and learning and just connecting with others who are on the journey with you. So this was the reference that I made earlier on. This is just for general notary work. So this is one of the fee sheets that I have, and it repeats some of the information that we saw earlier on, where the acknowledgement is just $10, and the verification, acknowledgement, jurats, verification, proofs, oath, and affirmation, those are $10. And then $15 for IPEN and $25 for the REN. There's a little bit of redundancy, but vehicle titles, those are $10 as well. This information here, I pulled it because I know that this is a probably a little bit tricky, because I want to make sure that I'm passing on accurate information. We do have a travel fee of $7, sorry, 7 cents, 72 cents, 73 cents, right? Some notaries are putting out a base travel fee. I am not clear on that. And I want to kind of just ask you to ignore that until I have some verification as to how that works. I think that applies to, like if you are other states. I'm certain that it doesn't apply here, because there is that HB House Bill 776. So bear with me. I did not update the slide accurately. I should have removed that from there, because I'm not quite clear if we are permitted to charge a base fee. But I do know, depending on your niche, for example, with the loan signing, I would often ask for like an added amount, because there is the cost of travel, right? And so sometimes a title company may call you and they may say, I have a signing and it's 100 miles away and I'm paying $100. So this is where you would want to at least have in your mind what you would say in terms of a travel fee per your mile, mile, the radius that you travel. And this is just an idea, because that's what I've done in the past. And this is specific to the niche that I'm in. This does not have anything to do with the IRS rate. It has to do with more of the notary signing travel fee, like a base travel fee, because sometimes that's not factored in, and that's a negotiating point that you would want to pay attention to when you're talking to some of the title companies, because that's a factor. And especially with the cost of gas nowadays, you want to be mindful of that. So establishing some sort of structure around what you're going to charge for your fee, this becomes important. And having an idea of what's the cost of, like the going fees that others that are in the industry that they are charging. It's good to know and research. So next, we want to talk about your first clients, and I'm going to put that off until next week because I believe our time has expired. And I will go over with you an opportunity that you can that I can offer you. And if you're interested in obtaining some vetted list or a vetted list of companies that I've worked with in the past, I will provide that list to you, and you can access that on my website. And it would be something worth considering. So if you want that vetted list, please let me know. Please please check out my website at www.farandnearllc.com. That's farandnearllc.com. So that's it for this evening. Thank you. And there is the website listed here, my number, and I really appreciate your time and look forward to giving you more information in the future. Thanks.